Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Thank you, everybody, for coming aboard. I think we still have a few people coming on, but we'll kind of get the things rolling here, and people can kind of jump on as we get going. Velosio Grand Rapids is happy to bring you to our Dynamics App Spotlight series. Today, we bring a longtime standing partner of ours, E1, which will discuss Popdock's SmartLists for all your data. Dan, would you like to share a word before I introduce our presenters?
Sure. Just welcome everyone. We're looking forward to highlighting a different products that can work with your Dynamics software here over the next year. So we're targeting every month to have one of these sessions, and I got to say that this solution from E1 is really an exciting solution. I think you'll really appreciate it. So thanks for joining, and we'll talk soon.
Great, thank you, Dan. Couple of housekeeping notes. We'll be keeping everybody muted until the question and answer session at the end, but please feel free to use the chat box to submit questions, and we'll try to work that into the presentation today. If not, we'll definitely follow up with items afterwards. And as soon as I introduce Alicia Bennett and Chris Dew, we're going to start recording this session, and we will also get you out a link so that you can review or pass along the presentation to yourself. So if you want to start, Alicia.
Sure, that sounds great. Thanks so much for the Velosio team for having us today. We're really excited to share Popdock. It's a tool that we use internally, especially when we're on the road for travel and that sort of stuff as well. So let's start out. Let's talk about Popdock and what it is, besides just kind of a fun word to say. Popdock is made for the users and everyday doers. So those people that need to access data in real time, using 1, 5, 10 different systems in a day. This isn't big data reporting or BI for those that are pondering or strategizing with big data sets. It's made for those doers, the ones that want to get to the line level of detail. So I want to take a minute to talk about 5 pillars that we have in Popdock, and we'll show these later in our demo and dive into 3 of them a bit deeper here in just a minute. So the first, being able to embed an actionable widget. This just means that we can take data from one system and seed another system without actually needing to integrate the data, okay? So for example, if I want to see my Business Central invoices inside D365 for sales, I could embed a widget to see this data, or even flip that scenario around, being able to see our CRM data inside Business Central or SL data inside Business Central. Okay. Next, having one interface for reporting from any system. When we talk about having to log into 5 different systems a day and taking the time to move from one application to the next, this is a huge time saver. So, of course, not only to having to remember all those different passwords for those different systems, so this gives you that interface to stay logged into one system and report from all those different systems in one interface. So custom application reporting as well, okay? So just a quick example, if we have invoices in Business Central and we want to see the credit card data related to that, we can join those lists of data together and create essentially a report across those different applications, okay? And real-time data access. This isn't something that we have in a data warehouse. We don't store your data anywhere. This is live refreshable data that you can refresh as many times in a day as you want to be able to get that line level detail as you need it. And then lastly, exception reporting. So this is often one we don't think of enough. Let's take an example of a help desk ticket. So if you have a customer that has reached a certain level or a certain status, you want to be able to know this exception and tend to that customer right away. As another example, let's say you have inventory levels that are running low. You need to know about these exceptions so that we don't run out of product, right? So a really great example of another way that you can use Popdock for that exception reporting. All right, so I want to talk about a few different scenarios and dive into these a little bit deeper before I hand it over to my teammate Chris to show these. So using our embedded widgets as before, as mentioned before, we have the ability to see data in one system without necessarily having to log into another system. For example, maybe you want to see that shipping information inside your CRM system or BC data, plus your legacy ERP data. Okay, I know a lot of people on the call have a different system, ERP system that you're looking at today, and you want to see that maybe inside your new system, right? Without having to migrate that data, we're able to view that data right within, let's say, for example, Business Central in this case, without actually having to migrate the data, okay? Or, for example, maybe seeing e-commerce orders or GitHub or Jira or those Zendesk tickets again, right? Being able to see that data from one system inside of another system. So these are just a few things to get you thinking about all the different ways that you're able to use widgets, as we call them. Okay. Another way we can use Popdock is through cross applications. So inside the Popdock application, we're able to compare, join, and merge different data sets all in one list. So maybe you want to see Business Central data and SL data all in one list, or without having to move from application to application. A great example I like to use is because we often forget about our marketing people, but marketing people that need a way to see how their blogs are doing or their help articles that you posted are getting liked on social media. So you know what similar content to post in the future. So this is a great tool to measure that data as well. And the last scenario I want to go over is, once again, diving into that exception reporting. So these are automated notifications that you can get via the Popdock app or via email. Some examples would be, customers over their credit limit, right? Maybe we don't want to actually sell anything to them if we know right away that they're over their credit limit. Maybe we had orders that were declined in our payment gateway, in Braintree is a payment gateway, for example. Maybe those people had orders over $5,000 that were declined, or you can set the dollar amount, etc. Or last week I had somebody that said, hey, we send out 4,000 invoices in a week. We have about 10 of those that are $0 invoices, and we want to know those $0 invoices so we don't send them out. And instead, we want to get that report and make sure that those aren't included in the invoices that are either emailed or printed out to the customer. So just an example, different ways that you can use that exception reporting. All right, quickly, these are just a few of the 60+ applications that Popdock can connect to today. We're adding these daily with the help of our new REST connector. So if you have any system that you would like us to see or like us to connect to in the future, every day we are taking suggestions for those, and we'd love to hear those. And the last thing I want to touch on before I hand it over to Chris, with Popdock, you can access this data from any device, okay? So any application, for example, in-app, Excel, or embedded in other applications as well. All right, at this time, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Chris, and he's going to dive into the actual application itself.
say if there's another column that I work a little more nicely, what happened?
Okay.
Chris and Alicia, are you guys still available?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm just passing the sharing right now.
Okay, great. We just
All
have
right.
a little bit
You
of
guys
feedback in
seeing
here.
a big pizza on my screen?
We are.
Okay. Well, I thought what better way to start the demo part is let's order some pizzas for everybody on the call here. So we'll let Wally order them here, and we'll keep it simple. We're just going to get 10, in this case, 10 pepperoni pizzas. Okay, so this little data that I have, this quick little form, I'm actually going to come back and use this a couple minutes from now. But I'm going to start inside of a CRM system. So in this case, it's using Dynamics 365 Customer Engagement, or CRM is what I call it. But this could be Salesforce. It could be whatever other system that you are using. And what I want to show you is that we can embed. This is one of those things that Alicia talked about, is we have the capability of embedding any type of data that we want inside of the system. And so if we look at this this account that I have, it happens to be an account called Giordano's that we sell products to so that they can sell their pizzas. If we look at some of these other tabs, these have been brought in as not in integration that you would typically think of, right? We haven't actually moved the data from another system, but we're getting a live look into that data in what we call a widget. And so in this case, this tab called ERP orders, in this particular example, I'm actually pulling some Business Central data. Now this could be SL data, or it could be coming from any number of systems that you want. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. But if we look at this interface has the same look and feel as the system we've embedded inside of. But there's some really cool things that we can do with this. And so I can actually, if I want to move columns around, say, hey, you know what, let's move the total to the end. And actually, I don't need all of these columns. I actually want to get rid of the customer number, because customer name is good enough for me in this case. And then I can say, hey, you know what, let's actually filter this list down. So if we want to, we can have an unlimited amount of filters. So I could say, hey, let's make sure that we only want the document date, and we're going to say it has to equal, I could have a specific date, or let's do something more interesting. Let's say just give me everything from this year. So now I can do that. Or again, I could say greater than or equal to. Just change that. Start of. Okay, I'm missing the start of last. There we go. I don't know why I missed it. But you can have as many of these filters as you want on here. You could have 20 filters if you want. You can have favorites. So I just filtered that list, and so now it's going and grabbing all the details again, but it's only grabbing the ones from this year. Now, some cool things that we can do from here too is I can actually do drag and drop grouping. And so now I have a list by the location. So here's each of the locations that we sell to for Giordano's. We can see that I have a total by the location, and I have a overall total. If we go ahead and look inside of here, let's say somebody calls, right? So now we have somebody inside of our CRM system, or it could be even a website or whatever. But let's say somebody calls in and is inquiring about maybe a specific invoice. So let's say they call in and say, hey, I got questions on 4029. Well, now we can search for that right inside of our list. I can pull it up, which is kind of cool. Let me show you something here in a second, is I can actually, without leaving this interface, I can see all of the line items on that invoice. So here's all the things that we sold to them on that invoice. But this is where things get real fun. I can actually, with the click of a button, because there is a tracking number on the one that we've selected, I can actually get live tracking information, and it could be coming from FedEx or UPS. In this case, it's coming from United States Postal Service. And so I can see, the status of if it's out in transit or if it's actually been delivered. So there's some cool things that without leaving this interface, I've actually now been able to connect to a couple different systems. But let's go ahead and, well, okay, before I do that, now here's one of the things, right? Now your customer says, well, hey, can you give me a list of all of my invoices? Well, sure. Now your person, right, sitting inside of that CRM or that website can just hit the export button. And now, it's on my other screen here. I just gotta move it over, sorry. But that in a split second generated it and gave me the exact same formatting as I had in here. So it obeyed the grouping that we had and brought in all my subtotals, which is pretty cool. Now, one other really cool thing is if I wanted to, since we're inside of Excel right now, I can actually insert any kind of data from whatever kind of system. So let me just use the add-in, and that's available right on the Office store. So let me log into my account here. And once I log inside of here, any kind of system I have connections to that have been set up, I can connect to those systems. So if I pull this one, I believe this is actually a SQL server. And that may not be the best one. Okay, I'll pull a different one. We'll just pull one of these Business Central ones. So if I look at this, I can pull it from whichever company I want. I can pull from whatever group. So if we wanted something around sales, I could pull any one of these custom lists. I could pull customers. We'll just keep it simple. We'll go customers today. And if I have any favorites, I can pull those as well. And basically, I can now load in any type of data that I want right inside of this interface. It's now pulling it from that connector without necessarily having to export it or import it again. So here we go. Here's a list of all my customers coming from that system. So I just want to show you that briefly. But let's stay inside of CRM for a second. And if I click on this tab, this is another Popdock widget. And this is now embedded Zendesk help desk tickets. So there's a lot of people out there that have some kind of external help desk system. Maybe it's not Zendesk. There's a number of other ones out there. But a lot of times, instead of just moving that data in between the systems or duplicating the data, we just want to have a view into seeing that does this account have any open tickets. So here I've passed in and I can see just Giordano's tickets. So it looks like they have 4 tickets. I can see that there is one here, right? This looks interesting to me. This one, they're concerned about E. coli with the lettuce. And that to me, that's a pretty important thing, right? So let's elevate that ticket. And what I want to show you is without leaving CRM, once again, I'm able to change a priority. So we're going to say, hey, you know what? That is no longer just a normal ticket. We're going to make that an urgent ticket. Like let's look at any E. coli problem. And so now you can see that we've actually been able to update that ticket in the Zendesk system and then return the data inside of here. So you can do some pretty cool things like that, or even just add comments. And those are all controllable, right? You can control who has access to do those actions, or maybe you don't want to make those actions available to other people. Other ways of showing this is you can actually display some more graphical data. So now I can see here's the top 10 products that we sell to Giordano's. So it looks like we sell a lot of cheese to the pizza company. That makes sense, right? From all of the different products that we sell to them. So just kind of another way of looking at that data. Now the last one I'm going to show you, here's another widget, yet another widget. So these are both, graphical type widgets. The other two are more lists widgets. But here is when I started the demo with, showing you that I ordered some pizzas for Wally. Well, here is the graph today, and I said we ordered 10 pizzas. And so now if I hit refresh, just want to show you it's real time. Now it's 89. And so we can see that those 10 pizzas that were ordered are now in this case a custom SQL database. So I can report off of web services. I can report off of SQL databases, I can report off a number of pieces of data and show it inside of this system. Well, what I want to show you right now is really where these lists are built. So for many of these connectors, literally setting up a new connector is something that takes 30 seconds for a lot of times for most people. But then after you set those up, the question is, what do you do with all the lists that are in there, or again, maybe custom lists? And that's what we're going to talk about now. So here's our home page, or kind of a dashboard, a lot of people call it. And you can see I have a number of things in here. Like maybe here's just a quick at a glance of today's sales, or here's a summary of all my Zendesk tickets. Now these are really interesting, and just what Alicia had talked about earlier, where she said, hey, exception reporting. This is for those kinds of things on a maybe a dashboard, but I only want to see things that means I have to do something about it, right? I need to take action on it. So again, if we look at the Zendesk tickets, 72 outstanding tickets, well, maybe this is a high volume center and that's a number we can live with, or maybe maybe we just restrict it down to just the urgent ones, right? And so maybe I would only want to see, just show me the urgent tickets as opposed to all the tickets. And so then if we have more than 5 urgent tickets, then maybe we got to bring some more people on or something like that. Or again, maybe customers with a balance. In this case, there's something here going, okay, do I really want to sell them more stuff if they haven't paid us in the the last 60, 90 days? And so this is again something that requires action. It says, hey, here are these customers, let's do something about this data inside of here. So I want to show you literally how easy it is to look at adding information. So inside of here, if we pull up this list, you'll see that this one happens to be pointing to Business Central data right now. I know there might be a few of you on this call that are looking at some Business Central data, and I think a few of you are using some SL, and so we'll talk about some of those things in a bit. But it's very quick and easy to switch between different lists. So here's a number of lists I have around the sales area inside of here. So if I wanted to switch it from the sales line items to maybe just the sales invoices, I can quickly do that. Oop, did I click the wrong one? Sales, I did. And so then now I'm pulling, in this case, it'll be pulling all of the sales invoices inside of here. And again, you could do those same things that I showed you through that other interface, right? If we want to add some additional columns to this, I can quickly add some address information, and now it's pulled in that additional information. So now we have our address line 1 and 2 on these kinds of things. Now, one really cool thing, same kind of thing where I showed you in the web interface, that we can actually display additional detail. So if we look at this one, I can click on it and I can now see here's the 3 line items that were placed on that invoice, or switch it to this invoice and see the line items from that invoice. So all those same kinds of things are inside of here, where you can have those relationships to other types of data. And you can quickly switch between, again, something like Business Central, and I could switch to, if I wanted to, Salesforce or CRM, or maybe it's a e-commerce solution like a Shopify, or maybe it's a custom SQL database. And so I'll show you, how you set those up. If we go inside of the connectors area, and you'll see I have way too many of them set up on here right now. But if we go ahead and look at this area, here's a number of them that are default ones that we have out of the box that you can connect to. But here's an interesting one. Anything with if you have a SQL connection to, so I know a lot of people have legacy databases, or even again SL, a lot of people choose to use this to connect to their SL data. And so if you have any views, or the tables, or directly, or whatever you want to connect to inside of there, we can quickly do this, and you can add a connection to that data. We also have, if there's other web services, so I mentioned Zendesk, which we have a dedicated connector for. But let's say there's that next thing, you go, hey, I actually use a different help desk software, and I see that it's not one of the default connectors that you have inside of here. Can I connect to it? Most of the cloud-based applications today have some type of API or web service connectivity, and so we can actually connect to those fairly easily just by copying and pasting a few lines from their documentation, and then we're able to connect to that data and show it just like any of the other pieces of data. But I just wanted to show you, this is really how easy it is. You click on this, you enter some credentials for it, it all gets, you know, stored encrypted. And one thing I should, you know, kind of reiterate what Alicia said earlier, but this is all real-time data that we're pulling. There's no data warehouse in the middle. We're not storing any of this data. This is coming, you know, from whatever system we're connecting to as fast as we can get it through whatever API that is. So here's where connectors get set up. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pull up, again, since a number of you are talking about connecting to like a SQL server. Here's an example of one. This happens to be, and I apologize, in this case, it's a GP one. I think I have a nav one as well. But I can choose which groups I want to add information to. And so if I want to add a new group called demo and add some additional lists here, I can do that. Here's where I add lists. And so again, because this is a SQL connector, you can see these are all the ones that I've created right now. But if I wanted to add a brand new list, I can certainly do this. And this is going to point to whatever, you know, database in this case I've pointed to. It's going to pull all of the tables and views and things like that. And so I think I have, let's go see if we can find a view that might be just kind of generic for everybody. A lot of tables in here, sorry about that. Okay, we're getting close here. Let's pick customer addresses. That's a good one, that makes sense. Right, so if I want to add this as a new list, it should now be pulling inside of here. Let's see. Okay, there we go. It just popped in. We're going to add it to our new demo group. And if we look at this, we can tweak it. So by default, it's pulled all of the fields that came from that view inside of here. So you can see there's a lot of fields that came from that view. But I can add calculated fields if I needed to. So without even having to, you know, redo something at the SQL level, I could simply add a couple of calculations inside of here, and I can choose which fields I want to default. So while we have, I don't know, 60 fields in here, it's chosen, you know, some of the standard ones for us to bring inside of here. But if we wanted to add another one, let's just add like an address ID or address code, so we know which address it's coming from. Now I have all the information I need for that list. And so here's, I mean, that's kind of the basics of setting up a new list inside of here. We can put in permanent restrictions, right? So if you only ever wanted to show particular accounts, so maybe it was just billing accounts or shipping accounts or something like that, you could do that. Here's the relationships, right, where we can add a relationship to another list. So maybe this is probably not a great example. Like I've been showing you like a relationship of an invoice and then the lines on the invoice. Or maybe we wanted to see like all the contacts from that customer on the invoice. You could do those kinds of things. So here's where we could add a new relationship to our list. And we can even add those actions. So one thing I didn't show you before, but might be worth taking a quick look back, is here's some actions I have in here. I showed you one for Zendesk, but here, for example, if I wanted to actually open up this invoice inside of the system it's connected to, and in this case, it was connected to Business Central, it's going to start opening up Business Central and logging in as my user that's out there. So now you can see from one place, I'm able to connect right to that data and see this exact same details I showed inside of here. Because I have you inside of Business Central, let's talk about the Embed discussion that we've had. And so if we look at it, I actually have the same types of things right inside of Popdock, inside of Business Central, where I can have whatever data I want published inside of here. So even if I like upgraded to Business Central, maybe from a legacy system, and still wanted to see maybe some of my legacy data that was sitting in a custom SQL table or something like that, I can actually expose those lists out here and see them right inside of the same interface of Business Central, and so have that same look and feel, same kind of things, adding new columns and all those types of things are all there. Okay, I know we're getting towards the end here, so I just want to show you that's how easy it is to add a new list. And now if we want to go back and view our list, I can just hit add a new tab. The connector was this one. Here's our new group, demo group. And we only had one list in there, customer address, so it knows that's the one we want. And so now we're able to add this list. I can have as many lists as I want up from here. And again, you can see I have 20 different systems. And I'm pulling just, looks like the first 100, but if I want to change that to 10,000, I can do that and get all of my customers right away. And so that's just a very easy way of working with any type of data that you want. I want to show you one more thing, and then we'll wrap it up. One of the key things we showed you was these widgets. So these are, again, take 30 seconds to create, but basically you say, I either want to publish just that list, or maybe I want to publish multiple lists. We call that application widget. You can do those kinds of things. But here's the one that's probably worth taking a look at. This is what Alicia talked about, was those exceptions, right? So if I want to send out this report, this scheduled, exporting of a report, I can say, hey, here's a report I want to run. It's pointing to this exact report. It could be a favorite, whatever makes sense. You can choose which email addresses you want to send it to, the subject of the email, and then the time that you want it to run. So I could have it running. You can see in this case, this one is scheduled to run on the 1st and the 15th of every month, or you could have the last day of the month, or you could have every day you could have it running. So it's kind of a nice thing that you can actually have a lot of control over when you want this, and you'll get an Excel spreadsheet with exactly the records that you need to do your job that day. So that's kind of one of the cool things. So I think I'll leave it at that. And Alicia, why don't we hand it back to you? I think you have just a couple of slides to follow up on.
Sounds great. I do.
And then we'll take any other questions too, as well.
Give me just a second here.
Again, if you do have any questions about what you've seen here today, you can either ask them in the questions pane or the chat pane, and we'll answer them for you.
Chris, can you pass the presenter role back over to me, please?
I can.
Thank you. Wonderful. All right. So I'll touch on pricing here real quickly. Popdock pricing, most people, if you want to have unlimited widgets, in any system that you want, that Excel add-in, any of those REST services, you would fall into that professional level. Essentially, it's $118 a month, and then any additional user over that would be $19 per user per month. Or if we talk about that, those scheduled reportings, essentially what that amounts to is $178 per month. And then, of course, any additional user after that is $19 per user per month. And one last thing, if you are looking to set up a trial of Popdock, we actually do have a 7-day trial available. You can go ahead and request that at popdock.com. And another thing that Chris had mentioned too is we do have some sample data out there, so you don't have to use your own data if you would like to just get a feel for the solution without setting it up in your own system. So both ways available there for you. All right, I think it's time we can open it up for questions. I'll unmute everybody. So if you want to mute your
Muted.
after that, you certainly can. Yeah, otherwise, if you don't want to ask questions or talk over the people on the call, certainly feel free to chat into the chat window and we can answer those questions.
I know no one has asked this yet, but one of the questions we do get quite a bit is, do I have to pay per system I'm connected to? And the answer is no. We don't charge if you're connected to 2 systems or 100 systems. There's no additional charge for each of those connectors. So that's one unique thing about Popdock, is it allows you to set up as many connections to whatever systems that you want. We have people that, you know, have had in the past either many different instances of Nav or Business Central, or even on the, you know, Solomon, the SL side, we've had people that wanted to connect, you know, several different geographic locations and pull all those together in one. So those are some cool things that can be done, and there's no additional charge. So it's fun to be able to say that. All right, well, I'm not seeing any more questions come in. So last call for questions. Otherwise, I think I'll have Dan wrap it up.
All right, so if you do have any questions, certainly feel free to contact Dan or Wally over at Velosio. I do have Dan's email and phone number information listed on the screen there.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.